Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
Welcome to Waiting with Love. As always, this is a fellowship style space for people navigating the messy in between that comes with waiting. Whether you're waiting for a child, as we are, or waiting for something else, we want you to know that you don't have to wait without hope, and you certainly don't have to wait alone.
This is especially true when the waiting has lasted longer, hurt more, or changed you more than you expected. If you've ever felt stuck in the middle of something you desperately wanted, you are in the right place.
Thank you for being here. Well, welcome back, everyone. It is a beautiful spring day here, which is nice in southern Maine. We don't get many of these. Most of them are rain filled and fog filled and not very joyful, but today is a beautiful day. The sun is shining. I want to start off today by just saying thank you to everyone who's following along. We have seen our social media presence grow by probably 25%, Andrew, in the last month, probably even more.
Oh, yeah, probably even more, yeah. And what's interesting about that, and I think it's a topic for next week, is the followers are not necessarily who we expected. So we'll talk, and it's cool. So we'll talk more about that next
Yeah,
week.
Yeah, more about that next week. But I do want to take a moment, obviously, to thank everybody for following along, for engaging. Our DMs have been blowing up, which is great. We're so happy to engage with all of you and hear about your stories. So, with that, where I wanted to focus today is we were on vacation. For those of you who follow our personal socials, will know that. Hopefully, you didn't notice a blip in our presence, a blip in the podcast episodes. We worked really hard to make sure that this fellowship that we're trying to build went undisturbed by our vacation. We were celebrating my 40th birthday, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. But something really unexpected happened on our vacation. Andrew had quite a big surprise for me, and maybe I'll let him tell you about that surprise. But where I wanted to focus today is this episode isn't about finally getting something that we've wanted or finally getting something that we've waited for a long time. It's not a workaround or a consolation prize, but I think it's about how joy can continue to show up when you're in the waiting room if you keep showing up. And I think that our vacation over the past couple of weeks was really an indicator of show up and joy will find you no matter what. So Andrew, you were the mastermind behind all of this. I was none the wiser of what was going on. Without giving a play by play, why don't you tell our listeners about the huge surprise that you had for me when we were on vacation?
Well, I was a co-conspirator with the boy, so we'll talk about that in a second. But we're not going to use his real name for just protect his privacy. But so as I think we've talked about this several times on here, we hosted an exchange student from France last school year. So not this year, last school year, and what started off as just your typical, I guess, relationship with an exchange student and a host family morphed into a family. Really, we see him much more than a exchange student. He sees us much more than just a host family, and that relationship has blossomed even more since he went home last June. So we booked this trip in October, and yes, if you want the play-by-play, we'll put this in the show notes. I do have a personal travel blog that has nothing to do with any of this. If you want to read the play-by-play, how this all went down, we can put it in the show notes, and you can read about it, because I did blog about it. But anyway, the boy and I started talking about surprising Matt for his 40th birthday while we were in Italy this past October. Like, it was a long time ago. And he was in on it. His family was in on it. So basically what we did was not we, because Matt had no idea, I arranged for the boy to fly from southern France through Paris and met us in Florence. And Matt had no idea. We arrived in Florence the morning before the boy did. We had our day, we had dinner, we got back to the hotel, we sat down at the bar having mocktails with live music, and all of a sudden, the boy arrived with a birthday cake to wish Matt a happy birthday, and surprise. So the trip took a 180, not for Matt, not for me. I knew it was coming, and then we spent a whole week with the boy in Italy, which fundamentally changed what the purpose of the trip was.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a wonderful surprise. I truly had no idea. Was shocked to the point of, tears when he walked in. And I think it speaks to, as you said, Andrew, we see him and I think he sees us as much more than an exchange student host family, but truly as a son. And as I said in the opening, he is not a consolation prize. He is not something that we see as a less than. He's something that we see as part of our family. He was really the first way that our family materialized, and it was such a wonderful surprise to have him there for my 40th birthday. But I also think that the entire dynamic of the trip shifted in a very positive way as soon as he arrived. On the day that we got to Florence a few hours before him, I was working in the hotel, which I think you were kind of grateful for because you were tracking his flight and trying to get all of these
It
logistics
was wonderful.
together.
Oh, it was wonderful. Yes, you be busy, join your
But
calls, leave me alone, right?
But the moment that I knew he was there, I remember taking him back up to our room and trying to get him settled with his luggage. And we were hoping that, a bed had been moved in for him, which it had, and his luggage was there, which it was. But I remember I immediately pinged my team back in the US and in India and said, hey, this trip just took a very pleasant, unexpected surprise for me. I didn't know that our son was going to be here and I'm going to be unavailable. And I think in many ways that was such a blessing to have because it helped me go back to having some boundaries with work and saying, look, I'm on vacation. This is a milestone birthday for me. And our son is now here. And he made the journey from southern France to Italy, as you said, Andrew, and I need to be present and be with my family. And I think that's what this episode is really about, is it's about how we can hold joy and grief at the same time without canceling one or the other. And I think as we spent the next 5 days with him, we were holding on to some pretty heavy waiting during that period, and him being there didn't cancel the heaviness. It didn't outweigh the waiting that we were holding on to, but it provided in many ways a positive and very healthy distraction that allowed us to enjoy our trip even more.
Well, right. I mean, I think that's one area you and I, to be perfectly honest with everyone, and certainly me, the last few weeks, I think I'm the bigger problem here when it comes to this. I just keep refreshing my email all day, just waiting for updates, waiting, checking my phone. Every single call that comes in, my heart just stops. I'm worried it's the agency with an update. And on the trip, again, I was starting to do that a little bit too, and I knew the boy was coming, but still, at the beginning part of the trip, we were in Paris for a couple of days. We went to Europe a few days early. Matt doesn't know this because I wanted to be in place for the surprise in case there were flight cancellations and delays. I just want to risk it. So anyway, so we were in Paris for a few days, and we had a great time in Paris. I don't want to undersell it, but I was checking my email all day, every day, waiting for news, waiting for updates, panicking. And yeah, once the boy arrived, as Matt just said about work, my mind just shifted. Doesn't mean I wasn't not thinking about it. Of course I was, but our family was there, right? So it's like we went to the pool, we went to Italian towns, we ate delicious meals, and I got to actually have some moments of just living in the moment, enjoying my time with Matt and the boy, and not thinking about fertility all day and night like we usually do.
Yes, well, too many meals, but that's another
Well,
story.
that's a different story.
But I think, when I take a step back and I look at our experience with finding the boy and the year that we had together while he was with us in the US, we spent Christmas with him and his family, which was wonderful. Obviously, the wonderful surprise for my 40th. I think it really speaks to how, if we look at our journey and the past 10 years, we could have spent the last 10 years sulking in a corner, hiding from the world, hiding from showing up, hiding from responsibility. And don't get me wrong, to some extent we
I was
did.
gonna say we did a lot of that. I was gonna say for a while, right?
To a large extent we did. But I think at the macro level, again, with getting healthier, getting our minds and our headspace into a better place, continuing to show up and continuing to be present and to live our lives, life will keep on lifing no matter what our best intentions might be. And I think that the boy really showed us, both in the time that he was here and that we've spent with him since he left, that waiting and being in this sort of constant state of waiting for that thing that we've hoped for so long for, which is a baby of our own, doesn't mean that we have to postpone everything, and doesn't mean that joy can't show up in some unexpected ways, because truthfully, and we've talked about this on this podcast before, like, he was unexpected. He was not something that we had expected along this journey, but has been a really pleasant surprise.
Yeah, no, yeah. Hosting an exchange student was never something we considered. In fact, we basically, I think we talked about this, but if you're new to the pod, we were literally bored one day on vacation a summer and a half ago and found a Facebook post about him, and we just said, sure, let's do it. Like, there was no discussion. We never talked about it before, nothing. But at the time, we knew there was a window in our fertility journey, that there was no risk of him being with us and a baby popping up, so which wouldn't be fair to him. So we felt comfortable doing it. And then, as Matt just alluded to, one of the things I think a lot of us in the fertility journey face, who are struggling and it's taking time, are those windows. Can I spend money on this knowing we might get pregnant later or soon? Or can we book this vacation down the road knowing we might get pregnant next week? We have our next embryo transfer next week. It's like, what do we do? Do we plan it? Do we not plan it? So, we've been trying to find ways to still see the boy this year, because we've known we've had some time. So we went to France for Christmas. The trip to Italy, again, not to give anything away, was a little risky. We didn't know how long the window was going to be when I started talking to the boy about that. And then, I didn't tell Matt, obviously, but there was a few very, very close people who knew about the surprise. And I basically said to them, if we should have some news on the fertility journey, we would still have time to go to Italy. Financially, it might get a little tricky, but you know what? He's our family. He's part of our family. We have time to see him. We're going to see them. We'll find other things to cut to make it work. And that was actually one of the risks of the surprise, because Matt was like, financially, should we be going on this trip? A few times Matt asked that question. Should we cancel it? We can still cancel it. I'm like, nope, can't cancel it. It's important. It's your birthday. We have to go. It's going to be so much fun. We'll figure it out. Don't worry, honey. But that's the balance I think a lot of us have to face with this fertility journey, is we don't know when it's going to work. We have these windows, and we're not suggesting you all should host an exchange student, but find something like that. It may have nothing to do with a child. It could be anything, but find something like that, because, as Matt said, he's brought us so much joy the last year and a half. We would not trade him away to have a baby sooner in a million years, or the experience. Again, this purpose of today's show is to talk about the trip and living in the moment, but I know we will become better parents because of our experience with him. It's worth the wait. It was worth having him, and we're so fortunate to have him.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And I think that, and we've talked about this before, having him there, we were waiting for some news, but I also want to recognize that, he's going through a difficult time right now. He's in a very difficult program with school. He's a junior. He's starting to think about college. And it also gave us the opportunity to be, as he calls us, his gay dads, and to talk about what his future looks like. And I think it was helpful not only for us, for the distraction and bringing us back into the moment, but I think it was mutually beneficial, because he's got some really big decisions to make coming up in the next year or so, with respect to school, with respect to college. And it felt really good to be able to be there and be present and be his dads and offer, I think, our perspectives on what his future looks like, regardless of what happens with us.
Absolutely. And that's that deep connection the three of us were able to have on the trip. Again, be in the moment. Again, this is so funny about vacations, right? It's like, we did plenty of things in Italy and France. We saw the Eiffel Tower. We saw the famous steps and fountain in Rome. We walked on the bridge in Florence, the famous bridge, the Ponte Vecchio. But again, what were our favorite moments of our time with the boy, besides the surprise, of course, which was fun, was dinner every night. The three of us dressing up, looking spiffy, having our mocktails, listening to the live piano, and going upstairs and having dinner every night at the hotel in Tuscany. And I joked to Matt. I'm not sure. I don't think the boys ever seen it. So I joked to Matt, it's like the White Lotus. We're staying at the hotel, we're eating at the hotel every night, and every episode, our live every day ends at dinner. All of us dressed up, just chatting. And again, a week and a half in Italy, 3 days in Paris. My favorite memories of the entire trip are the three of us laughing through dinner and enjoying our company and talking about life's challenges and his challenges and our challenges. We were honest with him. He knows our story. And just having those moments and laughing, and that's why we do what we do. That's why we all work a million hours a week. That's why we struggle through life, because of moments with the people you love, whether it's a partner, whether it's your friends, whoever it is.
Yes, well, and the latter part when he was with us was very White Lotusy. The whole hotel is has very White Lotus vibes, but it was
Very
excellent.
much.
I think for me, of course, it was dinner. I mean, you and I talk a lot about how when we often miss him the most is at dinner time, because now it's just the two of us. And I very often eat at my desk while I'm working. I did that this week. You kept asking me, what time do you want dinner? And I said, I'm going to be on calls for a while. Why don't you just bring it up to me? But I think that dinner became such an important piece of our relationship with the boy, because it was our time to sit down as a family and to reflect on the day and to talk about the days ahead, the weekend ahead. And that felt comfortable while we were on vacation with him. It felt normal. And I think it's something that, particularly for our American friends, we take for granted is meals in Europe are long. They're a drawn out process. I mean, if I think about dinner at the hotel opened at 7:30, most nights we weren't back in our room by 9:30 or 10, and then you just had a five-course meal and you're stuffed. And so the conversation from dinner sort of drifted into the evening with the windows open and the breeze blowing in. So I think that was really special. I totally agree with you, Andrew, but I also appreciated the moments in the thermal pool, just surrounded. It was quiet, it was warm, you had a beautiful landscape to look at, and there was just no pressure in those moments, particularly in the pool, because obviously we didn't have our phones with us, to have some of those really deep and meaningful conversations. And
I was just thinking that our most, again, we didn't want the trip to be like this, but we wanted the
oh,
boy
thank
to talk to us. Again, he has his. Again, we don't want to undersell his parents. His parents are his actual parents are wonderful people. They're great parents, but like anything else, sometimes you don't want to tell your parents everything or want to confide with somebody else. So we kind of get to serve as like the risk-free, easier, because we're not his parents. So we wanted to ensure he had the opportunity to talk, and we also, he's 17. We wanted to tell him a little bit more about our journey. So because we kind of, when he was here, we didn't go too far into it, because the school, it was about, he was here to learn. He wasn't and be an American student and whatnot. We didn't want to burden him with our issues. But now that we're closer with him, he's 17. He's back home. We wanted to. He's part of our immediate family. That's not going to change. So I think our two biggest conversations we had with him when we all confided with each other were in two places. One was the thermal pool. It was not a dinner. It was never at dinner. It was never over a meal. Those were more fun and light. It was either in the pool when we were all relaxed, as you said, and I think the other one was, it was just me and him. He was talking a little bit about school in the sauna with me, because we were just chilling. Sauna culture is very big in Europe, so the hotel has several saunas. We were sitting in there, and we were talking about his program a little bit and the challenge and some of the decisions he has to make about university in a year and a half. So yeah, I mean that's the thing, and it's like, what are the lessons I want to take away from that trip, which I failed at miserably so far, is not sitting in front of my computer refreshing my email every freaking second to see if there's an update, because the update's not going to change for better or worse if there even is an update, because I'm staring at my computer screen. If I, so it's like I need to find ways to live in the moment and relax, enjoy life, not sitting in a sauna with the boy in Italy. There has to be ways I could do that here.
yeah. I think the other thing for me that resonated in a very positive manner was because he joined us for the Italy part of the trip, both in Florence and in Tuscany, those are two places that you and I have been a lot, particularly in Tuscany. We know the hotel, we know the area, we know the towns nearby, we honeymooned nearby, and there was something really special about having him there and it being a new experience for him. He'd been to Italy before, but not to that part, and just us being able to, as I said before, be dads and share what we know about Tuscany, about Tuscan culture, and how much of our conversation sort of drifted into some of that history that you and I have with the region. You know, you and him talked a lot about history because you were a history teacher, obviously, and you guys share that in common. And we talked a lot about the food parallels and, you know, just being able to act in that sort of dad capacity. Like, I remember one of the first conversations that he and I had about the food in Tuscany is I was telling him that bread, obviously important in French culture, but that bread in Tuscany has no salt in it, and that was fascinating to him. And you know, it led me down the path of, because he naturally asked the question, well, why does it have no salt in it? And so we started, you know, at one point when we were in our room looking up, well, why does bread in Tuscany not have salt in it? And it just, like, I think reinforced that relationship of parent child. And as I said in the opening, there was no sense of less than or consolation prize, but like refinement and a reassurance of, we really want this. We really want to be parents, because those conversations with him and hopefully one day with our child are meaningful and they're important to us.
So now everyone's on the edge of the seat, Matt. You didn't finish the story. So why doesn't Tuscan bread have salt in it? And the answer is, I'll put my history hat on, because Tuscany, all of Italy back in the day, were all independent city-states, always at war with each other. And basically, because of wars and blockades and whatnot, salt became expensive. So they just started cooking without salt. Fun fact. I know everyone was riveted by that story. But yes, one of the other things I've struggled with, and I think you have too, we've talked about this, and one of the reminders every time we talk to the boy or see the boy that we need to remember, because we're so fixated, I'm sure a lot of you who are listening who are also struggling with similar things, on having a baby of your own or a child of your own if you're adopting somebody that's not a baby. Almost life doesn't start until you're successful. Like right now, we're just waiting for our life to really get going because we've been trying to do this for 10 years. We don't have a baby yet. We keep trying to have a baby, and hopefully one day we do. And once we do have that baby, play. We get to finally start, you know? Pun intended, we get to play with the kid, but also play. Like we're finally living life. And that's just a load of bullshit. I mean, and I need to remember that. And I forget that all the time. Like we have, like, tell me 2 years ago, there'd be a 17-year-old young man. He's not a boy anymore. He looks older than us now in a good way. Not the greatest, but mature. We'd have a young man in France who literally sees us as part of his family, and we feel the same way about him. And you know, on paper, we have some things in common with him, but not that this matters, but he's a straight athlete. I mean, on paper, he's got nothing very different than us, you know, yet we're very close to him. Now, there's some similarities too. But like, who would have ever thought 2 years ago this is what would happen? And tell me that's not life. That's, you know, and again, it doesn't have to be host and exchange student. It could be whatever. But think back, just think about all of you listening right now. Think back the last few years. Think of your favorite moments that have happened, or the most important moments that have happened that may not be fertility related. Would you trade any of that away? You know, so it's just, you know, that doesn't make the journey easier. As I've been telling you all for the last few minutes, I've been struggling since we got back from Italy, to be honest with you all. But that's where this episode's even helping me, just thinking back. I wouldn't trade any of this, you know? So the fertility journey is not fun, but so much good has happened the last few years. And it's not just the boy. We both stopped drinking alcohol. We moved to Maine. We've developed great friendships here in Maine. We have 3 dogs now. Like, we have this community now. Our careers have really taken off. Like, there's so much good that's happened. Our lives have continued and gotten better in ways that ultimately, if and when we are successful on the fertility journey, we are in a million times better place mentally, financially, socially. have much more muscle, have much more, better relationships, better as fathers. Oh my goodness, we've learned so much because of that experience with the boy. That those bad days when we're struggling and like life hasn't started yet, this is never going to happen. We have to remind ourselves that.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about something that I heard at a meeting a while ago, but it resonated, and I think it aligns pretty perfectly with what you were saying. You know, there's 365 days in a year, and you live hopefully all 24 hours of each one of those days, one at a time. And in the moment, things can seem big and they can seem heavy or they can seem exciting and surprising. But at the end of that year, there are only pockets, very small pockets that we remember and that stick with us. And I think that for me, him walking in and surprising me in Florence was one of those pockets that will be a defining moment of 2026. Call it a core memory. I think that's probably less relevant once you're an adult because you have lots of core memories, but of the entire year, that will stand out as one of the defining moments of 2026. And so I think as we start to sort of bring ourselves to a close here, Andrew, the thought that's resonating with me is maybe the point isn't to stop waiting, but to stop missing what's already in front of you.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like we're still waiting, but there are moments when we don't realize we're waiting. We get to enjoy life, right? The waiting is in the background. It's not front and center like it is for so much of our time. We're allowed to be happy. We're allowed to feel joy, even if we are struggling at different times. I think that's also an important reminder. And here's the thing, if we're ever successful with the surrogacy and we have a child or two children or whatever we decide to do down the road, no matter what, Matt, for the rest of your life, for your 40th birthday, our French son surprised you. You have that memory forever. You know, isn't that cool? And
That is very.
what's even cooler is and again, it's not about who's better, who's worse, who's our biological children versus who's a child who's not biologically connected to us, who is 17 years old, who didn't even know we existed for 2 years until 2 years ago, decided to basically use his entire vacation time to meet his gay dads in Italy. Not biologically connected to us, didn't have to do it, but he wanted to do it, and we get to have that. We have that too. I want him there. You didn't. Once he was there, you wanted him there too, and he wanted to be with us. Oh my God, oh my God, how special is that?
Yeah. So, with that, I think that brings us to a good stopping point for today. I think this is what life looks like when we let ourselves have joy, even if we're still in the waiting room. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. And thank you again for all of your reach outs on social media. Please keep reaching out. Maybe a shameless plug. We'd love to have you join us on the podcast one day. Talk to you soon, everyone.
Podcast, follow us on Instagram, Substack. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for being here. If this episode resonates with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to know that they're not alone.
You can find more about us and this community at www.waitingwithlove.com.
And links to our socials, as always, are in the show notes.
Until next time, keep waiting with love.